action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 226. It is 13th of November 2024. My name is Vesa Juvonen, and with me as a co-host here is Waldek Mastykarz.
2024.
2024. 2023. Pretty good.
Back to the future. There you go. There you go. Today you learn. We are in 2024. What has changed, Vesa?
Interesting. One of the years, it's a year. it's a year. It's okay.
Monday. It's
a Monday. It is a Monday, by the way. Now, in the PnP Week, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365 and our partner stuff like the Power Platform and Azure and all of that, and GitHub, everything else. And we try to cover also all of the tweets and content what people are doing with the hashtag PnP Weekly, which unfortunately nothing this week. No.
I think we're looking in the wrong place.
I think we're looking in the wrong place. I do agree on that. So
who moved
we
that
need to do.
There you go.
Yeah, yes, that is true. Anyway, this week we do have a visitor, like typically, who's Mike Maadarani. Who's Mike? Waldek.
Mike is an MVP. He is from Canada, and he told us some cool stuff about his career, a recent trip that he's done, and places he visited. So I think without further ado, how about we jump to the interview, because it's really, really interesting.
Sounds good. Let's jump there. Excellent. So let's get started. So welcome, Mike, on the PnP Weekly. Good to have you on the call. This took a while for us to get scheduled, right?
It did. Well, everyone's busy with travel and busy days and work and conferences and everything else. So, yes, but thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be on the show.
Absolutely, good to have you on a show, and of course you have your own podcast show and everything else. We'll talk about that one during the discussion as well. But Mike, can you do a quick intro? Who are you and what do you do for a living?
Yes, Mike Maadarani. I am a Microsoft MVP in Office Apps and Services. I've been an MVP for 9 years, going on 10 right now. Been around in IT for more than 25 years, but most of my professional career has been with the Microsoft world. It started in 2001 with SharePoint 2001. I feel old, so it's over a couple of decades.
Yes. I think, by the way, the MVP category, isn't it now Microsoft 365? So it's simplified. It's no longer apps and services. So
that's right.
That was confusing. So.
That is very, very correct. So so 2001 is SharePoint. I kept doing SharePoint, and back then CMS 2002, back in the days. All the way to the cloud. That's all I do is I focus much on the collaboration space in M365, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive. That's a bit on the Power Platform that complement the M365 world. Yeah.
And it's definitely the best to get better to get a story with Power Platform and Microsoft 365.
Exactly.
Now, can you kind of do how do you feel about the transition from 2001 to this moment where the cloud is taking over everything, and then the AI is coming? And
I know. It's a different world. Tell you one thing, it was back in the days when 2001 was not pretty. To tell you this, it was difficult to work with. 2003 came a little bit more flexibility, and then in 2007, that's basically when, as we all know, the SharePoint took off. Slowly, gradually going into the cloud, like anything else, including myself. When we went into BPOS before Office 365, I'm like, not sure about that. And then Office 365 came along in 2011. Also, like anyone else, you resist the change. I'm like, I don't know if I want to really use SharePoint Online or whatever. And then it took a few months. Even though I built the first beta portal in Canada on Office 365, I was still hesitant about using everything in the cloud. But when you start realizing the benefits and all the features that we get, it has been awesome transition, and a lot of new, as everyone knows, we get always updates and new features and things. And AI is happening now, and Copilot. It is exciting and scary at the same time.
Sure.
So I don't know about you, right? But like when I think back about BPOS and Office 365 coming out, the first thing that I saw was like, what are the things I cannot do? And I was like,
Yeah,
I cannot
exactly.
do this.
Exactly
So
the same
it
comment coming up.
seemed
Yes.
limiting. It's like, I cannot do
Yes.
this, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. So like,
Yeah.
and I think somewhere along the way, it caught on, and then it would exceed
Leap
everything that we could
forward.
do
Yeah,
do
exactly.
on-prem. But that took a while, and I recall very much. The first thing was like, yeah, that's cool, but there's just a pile of stuff we cannot do. I wonder if that was exactly the same for you.
Oh, it was exactly the same. I'm like, what do you mean I cannot deploy WSP? I need to deploy a WSP. I need to go and create my own solutions. I need to be
my
in
code,
control.
Yes.
And then you resist that. I'm like, I used to always compare and say, oh, well, I thought I can't do this. Guess what? I can do it with SharePoint 2013, right? So, and then slowly you realize, I'm like, actually, this is a good thing. I love that I don't have to deploy the WSP. I love that I don't have to control those codes and then go through the mess of deploying to multiple farms and troubleshoot why it's not working.
Correct.
So once you get over that hurdle of, oh, it's much nicer.
And also
easier
around
and
that
less
time,
headaches.
I mean, like when we went to the cloud, it was like the idea of remote code was brand new, and there was this weird thing with the Silverlight portal called Azure, and it was like, it's like Windows, but it's not Windows, but it's like Windows and it's OS.
Yeah, it was Windows Azure at the time. That's true.
Yeah,
Yes.
but like nobody could really grasp like what it was exactly, and everybody was like, what can I use this for? And then the remote code, like there were no APIs. Like CSAM was really in its infancy still, right?
Sure.
So all the things like, I want to be able to do that. Well, you can, or you need to do like, I think at some point we even had the idea of proxies in Sandbox, like that.
Yes.
Weird thing.
It was, like we resist change, and similar in SharePoint Online when we did the re-architecture into modern SharePoint, and I'm like, I can't have subsites, and every site is a site collection. I really don't like that. And then you dig into it more, I'm like, oh no, it's really a good thing. It's really,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is actually interesting when I think about it. Back at some moment of a time, there was this moment where everybody still had their on-premises data centers, computers, and servers. And now what we're seeing is that more and more companies are natively cloud. So there is no need to have that massive IT investments anymore within on-prem, unless there's some legacy, applications which haven't been moved over. But it's an interesting transition within, let's say, 10 years, roughly. Well, 10 years is pretty okay. And to say 5 to 10 years, when it's all of a sudden we're in this, why wouldn't it be in the cloud? Are you crazy? Cloud, of course, because nothing else is a viable option. So
yeah, and the mind had shifted. Like, I don't do any on-prem projects anymore. Yeah, as of 4 or 5 years ago, that's it. I've stopped doing on-prem. Everything is the only on-prem I do when I do a migration project, and I do a lot of migration projects still. That's the only time I touch on-prem.
Wow. So when you look at online, how did your work change? Because I can imagine like doing work on-prem was different. Like you had different tools available to you, different way to extend things that you don't have available online. But again, online you have things that you don't have available on-prem. So how has your work changed with the advent of online and doing more work in the cloud?
Yeah, I've always been an advocate of staying out of the box as much as possible. Like I was always against customization unless you have to. We've done a lot of custom solutions. We've done master pages. I've done a lot of publishing intranet sites with on-prem. And you have to go through the custom master pages, everything else. Going online, because I was a big advocate of out of the box, as less you have to do something custom. It was a really easy, once my mind adopted the cloud, it was an easy way for me to work in the cloud without the need to do a lot of customizations. Or technically, I do 99% of all the deployment without any customizations. Whether if I get into the need to pull something from GitHub, or just spin a small web part here and there, but it would be one in maybe 500 deployments that I do anything custom. So
but that also means that the product evolved over time and that it's good enough, right? Because in the past, I can imagine, there was bigger need. So is that need gone, or have we collectively became, less demanding?
I think a couple of things. One is the need is the product is mature enough to offer a lot of things that we don't need to customize. I would say that's the case. I would say up to 90%. And the mind had shifted as well. That in the cloud, guess what? Let's see what Microsoft is going to bring. Let's not spend the time and money and see if this feature, if it's going to be available, or why spend the time and money to make it the way we want it, rather than just shift the requirements a tiny bit so we can use out of the box.
Yeah. Now, on that topic, though, if we think about partner ecosystem and the stuff what you do, that has also meant that you've changed, because you don't do extensibility, you don't do modifications, and then the business has evolved. You moved, we as a Microsoft, we moved the cheese to kind of focus on different
the customers
things.
too, right? Because in a way they want to align with.
Absolutely, that's where the demand is coming from. How do you see the workload shifting? You've been advocating the no code that much even before. But is it less work? Is it more work on a partner opportunities? So how do you see the partner opportunities section to evolve?
It's still, even though I think it is very mature, we've been around for a while from the Microsoft ecosystem. You'd be surprised from a client perspective, there's still always the need for us as consultants to guide them on how to do things the best way. So I do a lot of roadmaps. I do a lot of roadmaps to the cloud. Even though we've been in Office 365 and 365 since 2011, there is still a lot of lack of knowledge from the client perspective and fear how to do things in the cloud. So what I do is a lot of adoption, a lot of roadmap, a lot of guidance, promotions of the citizen developers, promotions of Power Platform with the governance around it. So this is basically have been all of my work. Plus, there's a lot of merger and acquisitions that happens in the world. So I do a lot of tenant-to-tenant migration. So this has been going full steam for the past few years as well. So hand-holding is still there.
You mentioned a bunch of stuff. You mentioned Power Platform. You mentioned all the features you've got on Microsoft 365. It's a lot. How does Mike stay on top of all of that?
Oh boy. It's a lot. So,
how much time do we have, right?
20 minutes.
Yeah, so. it's a lot. Things always evolve. So we being part of the MVP program helps a lot. So to stay on top, to get the early news and the changes, you can't do everything. You will fall behind at some point, and you catch up at later on. So the way I look at it is, when there is a new feature, when I have time, and typically sometimes it takes a month or two before I go and start trying out the new feature, is just get either, if I have it in my MVP tenant, or try to get it into a different tenant, or try things myself. But talking to the product group, being on the calls, following the updates online. Sometimes you won't be able to attend every call, and that's pretty much impossible to do it. And then talking to peers, other MVPs will share information. I'm like, oh yeah, I missed that update. Actually, I'm gonna have to go try it out. So it's a lot of channels, a lot of different places to go and stay up to date. We do our best, but there's only 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
true. Unless you travel, super fast on certain direction. No, never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, travel, right?
That's great segue.
See what you did there, Vesa?
Now, pretty recently, Mike, you did a interesting Asia tourney related on community and actually teaching other people on the what can be done in the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform and Microsoft Cloud. Can you talk a bit about what was that all about?
Yes, so I just came back from a tour. I being an MVP for a while, almost a decade. I love the community. I'm always involved in the community, whether I'm speaking or organizing events. But recently, I did a tour to Southeast Asia. It was an AMS event, a sequence of events that started in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, then Singapore, and then Manila in the Philippines. So it was 10 days of going from one city to another and speaking at events, those 3 different events. And I did not know actually what to expect. It was amazing. The audience were so great. The turnout was awesome. Like I said, I went there preparing for my sessions, but never been into any of these countries or Southeast Asia as well. So I did not have any expectations. I'm not saying I had high or low expectation. I did not know what to expect. I talked to people and I said, yes, they love international speakers. They love to bring people from outside of the countries to hear them. But it doesn't matter how much they prepare you. I was blown away with the amount of interactions and how much they are eager to learn. So it was an amazing trip. I'm glad that I did it, and I might do it again.
And it's this time of the year when it's great to travel away from Canada as well, right? So
exactly.
So I had the same thing. It's sunny setting. So
yeah. The one thing I wanted to ask, I'm curious, right? Like, are there, like, if you would have to name, like, let's say 3 differences between folks you get to interact with in the US and Canada, in Europe, and there, what would be the three differences that you would say? Like you mentioned, one, eagerness to learn. Is that one of the biggest one?
I say yes, it is one of the actual differences. I'm not saying in the US, Canada, or Europe, which is presented in the 3 different places, they're not. But there has been a commitment. So when you are doing a free community event, you always expect 50 to 60% no-show.
Yeah.
In that case, it was not. It was the attendance rate was much higher. So they really committed to come in and see the speakers. And then the interaction with the speakers also. So during the when you don't present, they come to you. They're not afraid or intimidated to just approach you as to ask questions, to know who you are, and very, very welcoming. I'm not saying that other audiences are not, but they appreciated the 30 hours travel into their home country.
That's definitely.
So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's not, unfortunately, this is one of the things within the world which is large, and these areas are not those areas where we have the large conferences quite often. So people do appreciate people showing up. I remember when I've been in Singapore or Kuala Lumpur, and few of the other locations presenting. I don't need to remember where have I been? Anyway, so that's some point. There was pretty recently, actually, there was a really nice travel boarding pass which says "Sin to Hell." So Singapore to Helsinki.
Yes.
It's classic.
So that, Mike, you mentioned that you got to talk to some of these folks. You probably had a chance also to learn from them about, challenges that they have in workplace. Are they the same or are they different?
No, it's actually not different than what was challenges that we have in our world, in North America or in Europe, is the adoption and how to do things in the best practice way. And just the little questions in there, the all problems they have, there is no lack of skills, absolutely not. It's just basically what's the best way to deploy things, getting a different opinion from new people on how to do things the right way. But there's pretty much the same challenges we have here.
Is it the same action? So migration and tenant-to-tenant transition. So basically, we can kind of conclude that within these kind of areas, or at least people who are attending, are in the same technical level from maturity perspective.
It depends on the city. So in Malaysia, for example, I've seen people. There's still the cloud adoption is there, but they have a lot of on-prem. So it was really good for them to learn the new tools. I think I presented that one is Microsoft Lists. So I had like 4 or 5 hands. I think I had about 60 or 70 people in the audience, but 4 or 5 hands that have never seen Microsoft Lists before. They don't know what Microsoft Lists is. So they had some new audience. So Singapore was a little bit more. They had adopted more the cloud. So they're still doing a lot of migration. So we had, even though my session was not about migration, but we talked a lot about migrations. And Manila, Philippines, similar to Singapore as well. So cloud adoptions, and I did there. I think I did the SharePoint search to Microsoft Search transition. So they were very interested in that.
And you mentioned that it's like going there costs a lot of time, right? And it's not something that you will probably do every month, I assume.
No, it's too
right.
much.
So did you have a chance to talk to these folks and hear from them how we could bridge the gap, how we could connect with them on an ongoing basis, as opposed to having to be there in person, no matter like how cool that it is, and kind of not have the bound or the limit, of a distance?
Yes. So, like everyone else, they don't mind online events, but they are kind of sick of it, quote unquote, sick of online events. They want to be in person. That's why they had a high attendance. So they would love to have bigger events happening in the region.
Gotcha.
I think we did have Ticket at some moment
Correct.
of a time, and all of that. There were big events in Asia as well. So hopefully we'll get back to that one, because those are really good. So, and super, you get energy out of thousands and thousands of people being excited about something, right?
Yeah, and they mentioned Ignite the Tour as well. Like, it would be great to have Ignite the Tour somewhere in the region, and then it's a short trip for them to go and attend it.
Yeah, true. The distances between Singapore, Malaysia, they're not massive. So a few hours here and there.
Once you are there, it's okay. But being there for us, that's
true.
True. Exactly.
True.
And especially for you, right? Because like for you, that's additional 8 hours or more.
Yes, it was total flying time alone was 24 hours for me to fly.
Did you fly actually east or west?
I flew west. You gotta have to fly west.
And even
west.
then, that was even closer. Like for me, you're going like the whole map, but the other way is also like you have big pond.
Yeah.
In between, right?
Just to cross Canada, I need to fly 5.5 hours before I get to Vancouver and then go over the Pacific. So
wow.
And then you get the weird time zone day difference, and then it's like, which day is it, right?
It threw me off big time. Every time I talk to my wife or my kids, I'm like, what day it is today there? It's like, it's a 12 hours difference for me.
What, Thursday, Friday?
Yeah. And when you're flying back, you're arriving on the same day, even though you're traveling a big time. So
like I left. I think Tokyo. I had a layover I had a layover in Hong Kong. So I left Hong Kong at 6 p.m. and I arrived in Vancouver at 3 p.m. on the same day after flying 12 hours.
Yeah.
So you're getting a full day.
You won 3 hours.
We went back 3 hours
while sitting on a plane for 15 hours.
Yes. Now, if we would actually fly to that direction fast enough, then there would be more than 24 hours in a day, right? So
correct.
maybe.
But flying there, you lose a day. Like there is like a day in your life that is gone. Like
but now, if you would fly really fast another cycle and then cross the board again, would you go to the previous day? No, just kidding. Anyway.
Oh my, this is getting intriguing. Things you learn on PnP Weekly.
Yes. Cool. Coming a bit back on the previous discussion, you talked about the migration. So, what's your kind of a hunch level? How much of the migrations do we have left? On-prem to cloud migration versus migration within the cloud. So, how do you see the ratio there? It's
about not more than 25% of my migration world is from on-prem.
Okay.
I'm still doing some on-prem migrations, but most of migrations have been, I would say 75% is cloud to cloud, whether it's M365 to M365 or whether other document management system into M365. So a lot of people have gone into the cloud already, but merger and acquisitions keeps me very, very busy as well. So I keep a tab for how much I migrated. So far, I'm close to 500 terabytes of data migrations only on SharePoint.
Cool.
So,
wow. And if you look like between the folks who go from on-prem to the cloud and folks who are already in a cloud and do M&A, are challenges between those the same? Like, do they have the same ish or challenges to migrate, or are there different things because again they're coming from on-prem and they have different kind of things?
It's a lot of different challenges, definitely. From M365 to M365, your only challenge is basically the URL has changed. If you had any hard-coded URL that is going to break, because eventually your old tenant would go away. On the
and
team
directories
side,
and accounts and users and permissions and ADFs, but who's counting?
Teams has a lot of challenges when you change tenant and you migrate as well. But again, that's an API related challenges. But when we go from on-prem, it's very different because most of the migrations does not happen like from 2019. Does not happen from a SharePoint site that you have. It's a modern, right? It's still classic. So when you go from a classic architecture to a modern flat architecture, and you have to bring everything to the modern world, that is a lot of challenges. So a specific way that I have taken an approach to do the migration to minimize the technical issues you're going to have after the migration. Because if you you don't do it in a specific way, you're going to end up with a lot of technical issues. Permissions is one of them. Loading the actual site pages is a different one. So there's few challenges that you can run into it. But also, I always say that 75 to 80% of your migration is about analysis and planning, and the 20% is the migration, because you're going to have to go and study what the source migration is and what kind of challenges.
What of the data is actually being used? Can we throw it away? And what are the data what we migrate? And what kind of information is there? Do you have kind of a top tips on how to prep yourself for migration? What would be the most catastrophic, situations? No, not one of these again. Oh my God, this is a headache.
So what you have to run an analysis on the content and what kind of content you have. So you need to know the size of the content, the type of the content, and then if there are any customizations, if we're talking from an on-prem, if you have any custom solutions or third-party solutions, and then how you can replace that. And if there are in use, as we all know, a lot of clients get excited. I used to install third-party solutions or custom solutions and then never use it. But you have to do the analysis and you have to know exactly what's been used. And the analysis is not only on the farm or the tenant or the content or the technical things, it's the analysis on the people as well. If you are dealing with a lot of migrations or the big migrations, then what kind of resources do you have? What kind of support do you have?
How do you scan? How do you run analysis of people?
You just have to go. You don't use tools for that.
The PnP people scanner.
Yeah, I would love to have that. Actually, that's a good idea. You need to prep. You need to know the project team, because when I come in and then have a few people that help me as well, but at the end of the day, we do the actual migration and we move on to a different client. So they need to see that we need to talk to the client what kind of teams they have. If they are prepped, do they know the cloud? Do they know how do they deal with the cloud? Do they have enough support people into M365? And then we get them involved from the early days as well, like who's doing some of the migrations. So you need to know not only what happens during the migration, or basically on support as well, and going forward, how you're going to sustain that migration. Yeah.
What kind of tooling do you actually then use for the actual migration? What is your go-to tool?
So I do from a depends. I have used.
Yes, that's a consulting answer. That's a great answer. Yes.
Yeah. It depends on the size, the complexity. It depends where it's coming from. So I've used the Shape Migrator before, and I've used ShareGate as one of them. I have used AvePoint and I've used Quest. So it depends on what the flavor of the client they want to do, what kind of migration, where the source is, how complex it is, how often we're going to do it, the size. But those are my go-to tools.
Yeah, that's a pretty big market share of the available tools, and that's pretty much all of them.
There is a favorite, like everyone has a favorite, but yes, those are what I have done. There's a market share or a mic share of, if you want to call it, the tools that I use the most. But yeah, those are what I've done before.
Cool. And now, related on that one, I'm just kind of curious. Which of those are those tools taking also the extensibility into account? Because obviously we've done a lot of extensibility in the past. So are they giving you the insights then on analysis on the extensibility, or are they only focusing on the content?
No, they do pretty much most of them reporting and PowerShell. Cool. So we do a lot of PowerShell with those tools, and then basically I use the tools to do the reporting rather than writing on PowerShell and then choking when it runs on a big tenant or big farm. So the reporting is a key there. The logs that you get back is also a key on which tool does better. But when you're dealing with large migration with thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of SharePoint sites or site collections and terabytes of data, you're going to have to rely on the PowerShell, and that's sometimes the difference it comes between one tool or the other. The capability just to be able to feed the different machines and different migration applications to stay on top of it. And actually Excel is my best friend in migration. Excel.
Now imagine only because you have now ChatGPT for your farm.
I know. It would be awesome.
Talk to your farm.
It would be awesome.
talk to your farm, talk to your SharePoint farm. That's good.
ChatGPT for resources. I like that.
Imagine you could do that. You would throw like the whole farm logs, content DB, config DB at it, and you'd be like, hey, how many sites do I have? What are the top, customized or uncustomized sites or unused sites? And it's like, yeah,
Exactly.
here you go. Here's the list.
Exactly.
I mean, the data is there.
It might happen. You never know.
Well, or by the time it does, it's no longer needed because everybody moved online already.
But what's your take actually on that one? That's kind of an interesting nuance as well. Will we ever see the moment when everything is online, or is that a thing which will pass and then we'll start seeing people again investing on data centers?
I don't see it going back in time. I don't see going back investing more in data centers. I think that has gone by. Even if the big organizations, government, financials, banking, any type of verticals that I deal with, there will always be some on-prem. There will always be some integration or this hybrid approach between on-prem and the cloud. But I see a lot of clients also, but again, it depends on the size. They move completely to the cloud. Even their AD is in the cloud. They don't have any more on-prem. So no, I don't definitely see the on-prem decreasing much more and more and more. Eventually, maybe they will have their own data. If they have their own data center with a little bit of on-prem, but I think mostly will be cloud. I think we are there right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the number one challenge what we used to have within this was actually reliable network connectivity to the cloud. And nowadays, I think most of the world has gone past that threshold so that we're able to basically work completely remotely. Me and Waldek being great examples. So I have access to everything. Yeah. I'm talking about working remotely and everything is in the cloud. You're able to access the assets using just remote computers.
Well,
it's not like you need to have
like I work at home, and if my network would drop, I cannot do anything. I'm religious, and I have like a single line home, and it's like no backup, no.
That's why you need to have multiple lines. So see, I will have soon 3 lines just in case.
Yeah, because one is like what was it? 1 is none, and 2 is no. What was it?
What do you mean?
So there was this saying that I think it was coming from even MCM, where you would say that you need to have at least 3 machines, because like if one is down and you replace the other, right? Yeah. So you
backup
like 1 is none, and there was like an expression around it. I don't know.
But yeah, to your point, it happened to me. I think last summer, where I was with one provider for everything, and it went down, and I could not reach anyone. Absolutely nothing. For one day, for 24 hours, it was that long, and that triggered that I needed to have a second backup.
Yeah.
Well, but that's an interesting thing, right? So now we have with this trend of working at home. Like if you work in an office, obviously the company has, SLA, some connections, and it's business thing. So it's different agreements between the ISP and the employer. But if people work at home, they don't have that. It's not like the employer gets a business level line for every employee at their house.
Sure. So I do have a business line to my house. So as an example,
you're different. You're not like everyone else. We know that in any way, and I mean in any way, right? But normal people, not Vesa. Like imagine that, like what does that mean? Like what does that mean for like how we work? And if there's outage, who's to blame or paying for it? Or I don't know, like any experience there?
I think if you look at it, we as an individual, we are really, really small scale. So if an individual had an outage, it's not going to impact the entire company. So do we really need an SLA? How from a financial at the end, it's a financial, equivalent.
What is the risk?
How much of an impact? If you're a small business, definitely you're going to have an SLA. But if you're an individual working for a company, if you took a day off because of that connectivity issues, unless you are on a deliverable, then
in the grand scheme of things, totally.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
Exactly. But it would be interesting to miss all of the connectivity. That's actually 24 hours without any connectivity. It's actually, when you think about it, that would be
What would you do?
strange.
You would
That would be
rake
really
leaves.
strange.
You would rake leaves, I bet.
In Canada as well, absolutely.
Yeah,
So.
I ended up going fishing. So I'm like, okay, guys, nothing to do. So let's go fishing.
Yes, there is. Let me check I can't check that one. Let me watch TV. No, it doesn't work.
I'd read a book, but all of my books are actually on a Kindle. So
they're typically downloaded on Kindle.
yeah, fair enough.
Exactly.
Almost like electricity going down. So luckily that doesn't happen that often anymore. So
No. I actually cannot imagine. Like, I don't recall when was the last time we didn't have power. That was a long time.
Sure. Well, it depends on where you're living. Even depends on, I don't know, Mike, how far you're living from downtown, but in our case, obviously in Finland, I think it's the same in Canada. Electricity lines are actually under the ground so that they don't freeze. And whenever if trees are falling, there's no problem with that. But of course, if you're rural outside of the cities, then it's different.
Or you live on a rock.
Or because of course you can live on a rock. Why would you live on a rock?
Well, if the ground is if it's too much effort to dig.
Yeah, fair point.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, where I live, it's all underground. But in my area is underground. Eventually, there's above ground, and when we get ice storms, and sometimes now lately we're getting a lot of bad weather during the summertime, so that will knock out some power lines, and we lose power. It has happened.
Wow. I can't remember when I had that. That's interesting. Good point. Now, how do you see, Mike, yourself? And timing. We cannot go too far on this one. How do you, now that you've seen this like 20 years of transformation from on-premises transformation to the cloud, being first a bit against cloud because it's limited, but then realizing that it's much efficient. How do you see this just to move forward within 5 years? Any kind of thoughts on how do we see the working life in 5 years? Are we going to get back to the office? Are we going to see in-person conferences? Maybe are we?
AI.
What changed?
How about
AI. Is AI taking over the?
I mean, we only have 2 minutes, Mike, so you cannot go on time.
A lot of topics for 2 minutes.
Yes.
It depends, right?
I don't see it going back to the office. Like maybe a little bit, maybe 5 to 10%. Just going back to the office. We've been productive online, so we don't remotely. So the need to be in the office is not really a must. There are some use cases for that. Next 5 years, AI, we're gonna have to cannot ignore what's happening around the world. Cannot ignore the open AI and the evolution is happening. It is just the tip of the iceberg. Not even the tip of the iceberg. It's probably the forecast of the tip of the iceberg here in the AI world. It is not mature. It's going to mature in the next 3 years. I think in 3 years from now, we're going to see a lot of different things in the AI, especially in the M365 world where Copilot is happening. It is going to change how we do things. It is going to increase our productivity. A lot of people are scared of AI that's going to take over the world. Well, it's a good argument, but we still control it as long as we are good in what we program and what we develop. I think we are still in good hands. But it is going to help us tremendously in delivering solutions and delivering higher collaboration among us and achieving the work much faster. Because we know the data is there. All it requires that for us to go and gather that data in an efficient manner and present it. It's
my classic example being just what is available right now, but we can only imagine where we'll be in 3 to 5 years, is that we can actually get this recording, what we're doing right now, and just put it in give it to AI, and it will summarize accurately what we went through and what are the key points.
We have it already.
We have it in Teams, and Teams Premium has this feature, not within the what we're using for recording right now in this case, but still.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it's kind of one of those things where, well, that's not making you as an employee not relevant anymore. No, it's increasing your productivity. You do no longer have to go. The amount of times I've been listening recordings, which happen 2 a.m. in the morning my time and the following morning, and it's like, oh my God, I don't have time to listen to all of this stuff just to catch the key things. And then nobody needs to take notes because the AI is taking the notes on behalf of you. So all of that not relevant work can be then delegated to the computer, and that's mind-boggling.
That's an interesting point, though. Will the ability for us to automate so much of it change the way we look at work, and we will meet less because everything we will realize at some point, well, things may become an email or writing or a doc you summarize in bullet points, and we will do more of that as opposed to everything needs to be in person because that's how we used to work for the last 20 years or more.
I think it's a combination of both. It's gonna do things for us. Like I give myself an example. I have like a knowledge base of all the scripts and spreadsheets and everything for all the clients. And sometimes it takes me a while to go and find what I did 2 years ago. So having that quick access to that information through Copilot or through AI, that okay, get me what I did, or this is what I'm looking for, is going to bring the productivity much higher. Maybe from a consultant revenue perspective, it will be quicker revenue and higher revenue. But to go back into the way we used to do it in the office, I don't see it. It's difficult to predict it 5 years from now what's going to happen in the world, but it is going to give us more access and quicker access to things than we had.
One thing, and I have to share from my last week, with a prediction on the future. So, this 4 weeks, 4-day working week, that's really old school. So last week I had 2 working days off, so which is basically 2 weekends in 1 week. That was brilliant. Just saying. Mm-hmm. So let's not promote
for our work week.
For our work, yeah, that's
Tim Ferriss, right?
I like that.
Yes. I don't know. That would be boring. The thing is, when you like what you're doing, there's a lot of ideas, and then maybe you would anyway do the things as a hobby in some of the things. Of course, you wouldn't be choosing the most complicated migration projects in that case, but you would still do some of the stuff as a hobby. So, but yeah. Anyway, I think we need to wrap up. Mike, yes. Anything interesting happening for you within upcoming week? Topics where you're focusing on, or are you traveling, conferences? Anything interesting happening?
Two more conferences. Two more conferences. We're wrapping up the year. One in Minneapolis. Just talking about. I'm just focused a lot on syntax and Power Platform integration between both of them. So I'm doing that. So just the last typically 4 or 5 weeks of the year, things from deliverables start to slow down because of the holidays. This is my time to catch up on new features, things that I've missed. I could not really go and try and do and listen to. So
we'll give you one more shot at it. We will throw a little bit into it because in a week there will be Ignite.
That's true.
So we will have yet another pool of announcements for you to catch up so that you won't be bored. Okay.
Exactly. Ignite is one of the key highlights on every year that we always look to hear what the announcements. Even from an MVP perspective, there's always few things that we don't know. So we always look forward for all the announcements and the roadmap for the next year for Microsoft. So this is always a key highlight for us.
Yep. Cool. Anything interesting, Waldek, on your table?
I think we talked about it just yesterday because today we're recording on November 7th, Tuesday. So it's still very much the same.
The same.
Creating new content for Learn to help folks learn some of new cool tech that we will ship shortly. We're working on new improvements for the Microsoft 365 developer proxy. And just today we merged a PR. Like a few weeks back, we did an announcement that we are stopping investments in the Search API for SharePoint and OneDrive in favor of Microsoft Search APIs on Microsoft Graph. Right. We just shipped APR that's going to help you find out where in your code, or if you use these older APIs in your code so that you know about them and you can upgrade them to get the benefits of the new investments. So that PR went in today, which means that we will have a new preview release coming soon with that thing for you to try. And then other than that, top of mind, 3, 2, 1. No, I think that will be. I think you have ESPC. One thing to announce, ESPC, but that is in 2 weeks, so that is still on my to-do list. but there is one announcement that probably you will share that will cause some work on my end too. So Over to
True.
you.
So SharePoint Framework 1.18.1 version for developers went live actually today, 30 minutes before we started recording this one. So which is good. Early people in waking up super early in Redmond, so they clicked the button and we got it out right at this moment of the time because it's now 6:35 in Redmond AM. So that's really early when they're waking up, or some of them. So. But and of course the ESBC European SharePoint conference is coming, which is not just about SharePoint, it's all about Microsoft 365. So that's going to be interesting and looking forward on that. A lot of my colleagues from Redmond are flying over as well, so it should be good. Should be really good.
Yeah, it would be actually cool to see these folks here as opposed to always seeing them
Fly over,
there.
exactly. That is true. That's true. That is true.
Everybody's coming to me on my turf. Perfect.
True. And I got the MVP Summit travel confirmed, which is good. So I'll be in MVP Summit next year.
Awesome.
Like you, Mike, probably as well, because it's a
I will be there.
small jump for you to the Redmond. But anyway, I think that's it for now. So thank you, Mike, for joining on the PnP Weekly. Went a bit long again, and that's on us. We cannot control the schedule. But there were so many good discussion points. We just got started. We'll get you invited on the show again later within a certain time frame, and we'll see how the world has changed during that time frame.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. And
thank you, Mike.
Within the show, we'll jump on the weekly articles to go through what has happened in here. But thank you, Mike, one more time.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, one more time on the great interview. Good to catch up as well. It took a while for us to get that one scheduled. It moved a while thing, so it was good to finally get it completed.
It's us.
Yes.
It's always us.
Yes, it's always us. Anyway, let's then jump on the weekly articles. We did spend quite a lot of time on the discussion, which is good. The interview is the main thing, but we want to also cover some of the weekly articles. So let me click this one so we can actually see the weekly articles in the screen. Yes, producer, what is it, director, whatever. Yes. So let's start with a lot of the news to this week from Microsoft side is about covering what's been going to be covered in Ignite. So this week is going to be Ignite. I think starting from Wednesday, if I'm completely not mistaken.
Or is it tomorrow
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, or is it from Tuesday? I don't know. Let's double check that. But a lot of other sessions across the different technologies, across the different extensibility point, end user point, administrator points, new features, new announcements. There's going to be a lot of interesting stuff actually going to be announced in Ignite. So it's going to be interesting to see how people are reacting on these things. A lot of the titles are pretty generic, like becoming an AI-powered organization, Microsoft Copilot. You can actually cover a lot of stuff in that, right? So, or the extend Microsoft 365 Copilot with your line of business apps and data. Okay, so we covered the options and all of that. Rabia is there as well from your team with Rob and all of that. So a lot of great content across the board within Ignite. Now, we also had a update well, not an update, but announcement related on Meet application in the Microsoft Teams. This is actually pretty cool. So technically, the Meet application is a going to put the audio away. An application where you can go and you find all of the latest and greatest around your meetings, including upcoming meetings and also past meetings, recordings, all of that stuff. So you basically have a one centralized view as a grouped view for all of the things what is happening, rescheduling, send reminders, all of that stuff, as you can see under here, and definitely the meeting summaries as well from the past. So that is
I
actually
can see it in my Teams too. So I haven't explored it, so I definitely will. Definitely will check out because my calendar is full of things. So
yes,
will be interesting to see how that helps me stay organized.
Yep, absolutely. Really cool stuff. Good. I will post that one. Let's move in here. Introducing app ratings and reviews in Microsoft Teams, a new way to engage with your users. Now, we have been having ratings in the app stores for quite a few years, but you have not been able to actually provide those ratings directly within the Microsoft Teams, and that is the new thing in here. It's a bit of a complex thing when I think about it. So we have the app stores, and then we have the Office store, and then we have the Microsoft Teams store and all of that, but it is actually the same data. So if you go to appstores.microsoft.com, you can see the same listing as within the Microsoft Teams, specific listing in the Microsoft Teams, or within the SharePoint listing, Office listing, but it's the same offerings. And now you can actually provide then surveys and input directly within the Microsoft Teams, which is good. So getting that insights back for the ISVs. Now, again, Ignite sessions, 14 to 17. It starts on Tuesday then. Okay, cool to know. So on Viva site, 4 sessions which are being explicitly mentioned. And there's a what's new in Microsoft Viva, a lot of stuff. Obviously, there's so many modules nowadays in Microsoft Viva. It's good that we're covering them across the board within Ignite. Now, this is actually really interesting. There was an interesting question around this one. So the new web parts available in the SharePoint Web UI Kit. What is a Waldek UI Kit? What is your first impression?
SharePoint Web UI Kit. These are Figma files that I can use to build a mock UI that I would show to customers.
That is correct. Now, the interesting question what I got from LinkedIn related on this one was that, okay, so does this mean that in the future I can just export my designs in a Figma and then that will be the code within SharePoint? The answer is no. That would be kind of cool. Absolutely, but the answer is no. So these are design assets, and these are out-of-the-box web parts.
Are we working, or is the community working by any chance on converting Figma to PnP templates, provisioning templates?
No, that would be an interesting thing potentially
because
well.
The tech is there already.
Tech is there. Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's true.
If you want to get involved in community and provisioning and you work in Figma, this sounds like a great opportunity to help everybody in the world.
True. So you would design the page within the Figma with SharePoint Web UI kits, and then you say export and poof, and then potentially
provisioning template.
Definitely doable technology. Unfortunately, the out-of-the-box templating does not yet at least support the base level configuration, so you cannot actually use that. But good point, good question, understandable.
Next.
But no, I'm just watching the comment here. I'm confused. These web parts appear to me mounted and I can use the out-of-the-box. Why do I need to download the Figma SharePoint Web UI kit? You don't have to. No. This is for designers who are designing the experiences. So as an end user, don't worry about it. Not necessarily.
If you want to run envisioning workshop with a customer and you want to show them what they could do without assembling an actual page, you can do that.
Correct. Now, technically, using a real page is more efficient because then you can drag and drop and do options and all of that. But again, so there's multiple ways of doing this exercise for sure.
Yeah.
Now, on the SharePoint blog also, we updated the most widely used SharePoint framework ISVs from the store, October 2023 edition. So this includes any SharePoint framework powered solution in Microsoft 365 and those top 10 providers with most usage from the store. And it's cool to say actually usage from the store is also increasing all the time quite dramatically. So cool to see the growth on that side. Ignite 2023 for Microsoft 365 admins, some of the same sessions being mentioned here as well, but basically just summarizing all of the admin focused sessions. Quickly looking on the list of things, good list of things. Some of them are roundtables, some of them are discussions, and some of them are truly admin, some of them are truly developer stuff. Then there are sessions which we cannot actually yet go to the details what they contain because there's going to be cool announcements in Ignite as well. Now, refreshing meeting details in OneNote on Windows. This is actually kind of interesting. I prefer OneNote, so I use OneNote as the thing where I'm taking notes, and whenever I need to write anything in text, I just copy that to OneNote, and then I have a years and years worth of weekly, page for every single week, which has all of the tweets, all of the things what I've done as an archiving technology. Cool. But also for meetings, you can actually now easily then get the meeting notes and details directly within OneNote, and that's really, really convenient option if you use OneNote for these kind of things.
Cool.
Then we move to the developer side of the Microsoft 365. So send Microsoft Teams activity notification without app manifest changes. So that's Teams activity notifications. It's a big focus area, and getting more options there is great. I'm just realizing that I'm throwing myself on the hand, so that's really smart. Sorry.
It's so famous. I wrote autograph on my hand. for myself. There you go.
Yes. Then we had a SharePoint Framework 1.18.1 release. This is a really minor update. It actually has one additional capability within it, which is around supporting the theming options within the Microsoft Teams also for your connection. So a relevant thing for mobile, for sure. And we didn't want to wait until 1.19 to get it out.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Technically, let's get it out. It's available for use. So. And then there was an update related, or you wrote a blog post related on, custom craft connectors. How do I get started?
Exactly, right? So because the last few weeks we talked about them a lot, or I talked about them a lot, right? Like what they are, what benefits they give you, what problems they solve. And then we arrived to the point where, okay, now I know what they are and what I would use them for. How do I build one? Well, this is the answer to that question, along with a link to a sample that you can use to download the code, press F5 and see it in action. Because in the end, that's really the best way to learn code, to see it in action in your own environment. Go step through the code, how it works. And the cool thing is, this sample is simple. It's meant to be. It's not a code that you would run in production, but it's the first step to really help you understand the concept, the key parts of it. And then if you really want to get into, so how would I build on one in production? Guess what? We have an example for that too. So definitely check out the article and check out the link to the samples.
Yep, really, really cool stuff as well. And the good thing to call out always in here is that the Microsoft Graph Connectors is also the extensibility model for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you can get your own business data or whatever data you want directly in the flow of the Copilot as well. So you can start asking questions from the Copilot around, hey, what about this stuff? And it will know. So
and it's also so this is this interesting thing that even though you might not be using Copilot yet, if you are a partner and you think about, so how do I prep? How do I keep my skills up to date so that I go with the wave of interest and customers? Well, this is technology that you will need to think about these things, right? Because at some point, Copilot will be used more and more and more, and people will be so now that's cool that it's got access to everything in Microsoft 365. How do I give it access to everything else so that it's got the ability to reason over all info that I've got and not just the files, emails, and whatnot?
Correct. And it's good to think through this implementation because, again, Copilot is as powerful as the data what you feed the Copilot to. So it's actually, it seems to be, well, I'm going to take a quick detour, but it's interesting to see still every now and then we had the discussion that why Copilot can we don't need these kind of things and we don't need documentation. Copilot is going to write about that. And it's like, but how can it write about that if you don't have the source material? You need to explain the AI the topic and the thing. It doesn't come up with the stuff out of thin air. So that just doesn't matter. And the whole large language models and AI, it's all based on the validated source data, which, by the way, then impacts biases and all of that stuff because you need to make sure that the source data is, diverse enough.
Correct and authoritative. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you need to have the source data. You cannot come up with a facts.
Well, why can't we have AI write the source data for itself?
Exactly. That will not work out that well. So. But I understand now related on that one because there's such a huge buzz around AI. So this, of course, the logical thinking is that, well, we don't need any more technical writers or developers. We'll just make the AI to create all of this for us, which is like, based on what? How would it know?
Stop asking the difficult questions, Vesa.
Yes. Why do we need SDKs? Because AI can do all of this. No, generate tailored Python and PHP API client for any API with Kyoda. Kyoda is the really, really cool tooling which will able to create an SDK from any API. And that's actually really, really cool. So it's basically reading the API definitions and then creates a efficient wrapper on top of that API. It's super cool implementation. So awesome stuff on that. Test and debug securely with dev tunnels. What are dev tunnels?
Dev tunnels is basically the same thing as, like Ngrok. So imagine you build API locally and you want that API to receive a webhook from something like Teams. Well, Teams in the cloud cannot call the local host because local host in the cloud would be something else, right? So it needs a way for your local box to be exposed to internet. And that is kind of where a tunnel comes in, so that you get a publicly resolvable address, a tunnel that exposes the local APIs, the local server that you've got on your box to internet, so that it can be called from things like I think probably the webhooks is the most common need for this. And also another one is probably bots, which is kind of another thing where there is service calling an endpoint, and that endpoint needs to be on internet because service is in a cloud. It's not a local box too. So
absolutely. We might have, to be fair, I'm just thinking here completely irrelevant things, but why did we name this just as dev tunnels? It's so generic. It's like, oh, what? But, it's hard
it's a self-descriptive name. It's exactly what it is. It's dev tunnel.
But in a larger world where it's not just about the Microsoft technology, dev tunnels doesn't define where it can be actually used and what is the context.
Wherever you need it. Where do you need a dev tunnel?
That's fair. That is fair. That is fair. But it's pretty generic. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
Now, moving on the new things. So we had a PHP SDK version 2 coming out from the Microsoft Craft team. So really, really cool work there as well. So public preview was already available since July, and now it's actually as a GA version of that SDK, making it easier to write Microsoft Craft-based solutions. There was also an update on the item insights admin setting path and scope change in Microsoft Craft. So this is basically a breaking change in the V1 endpoint.
No,
it's in a beta. It's in a beta. It's in a beta. Sorry,
no.
My bad.
Let's no. You heard it wrong. No breaking changes.
No breaking changes.
Even though it says on the page, it is a breaking change. It isn't breaking change.
But it's a beta, so
the beta endpoint,
yes, exactly. It's not really a breaking change. So it's not a public GA version of the endpoint.
Yes.
So betas are being used so that we're able to adjust and get the feedback and then adjust the implementation before it goes to the V1.
Yeah.
And then there was an availability of Outlook-rich notifications in Microsoft Craft. So basically, you can do notifications in Outlook using the Craft endpoint, right?
Correct.
Which is actually really, really good. So we don't have to fall back on a classic API surface. You want to use, of course, the Craft API surface, which is the right way to do these things. So definitely.
Yeah. And it's just so much easier to have one endpoint across all of the Microsoft
100%.
As opposed to you get endpoint for this, endpoint for that, and they all are structured differently, work differently, need different clients, different auth. And it's like, no, like let's make things easier.
Yes, definitely. Now, then we have 2 tweets which we wanted to call out. So Shawn Mendes had a really, really cool implementation around a sales order app, which shows how to use Microsoft Craft Connector as a data source. It will be available in the developer, in the web parts, SPFX web parts pretty soon. This is built using Teams Toolkit and a Craft connector as a starting point. Now, is the Teams Toolkit SPFX solution connecting the Craft connector? No. That's not how it works. We use the Craft connector to feed the data, and then we're using search to actually surface the information.
Correct. But it's kind of the end-to-end thing where you've got the external source, connectors bring it to search, and then you connect to search. But it's I don't know the way he does it, but it reminds me of the person in the past. I don't know the name. Like who would touch was it King Midas? Like who would touch everything and it turns into gold. These designs are like every single one he makes is just like, spot on, brilliant. That looks awesome. Like ship it.
That's true.
Production ready things that look awesome. Like, really, really cool.
Great work, Shao. Really, really cool work, and they look so good.
Teach me, master.
yes, exactly. Now, the other thing what we wanted to call out is Paul Bullock is leading the effort around PnP script samples, and this is a great set of samples. This is just an example from Nandeep Nahan, related on sharing his sample in here. I think we are starting to have a lot of these script samples available in the PnP script sample section. You can actually search by tool, search by functionality, search by script. So you can basically go, what are you trying to achieve? Or in quotes, product. You can filter based on Craft, based on Azure AD, based on To-Do, and so on. not to do. But you can actually have multiple different filtering mechanisms, and you can find the relevant sample for you. We all know how many PowerShell scripts and all of that we've been writing in the past, or CLI scripts we've been writing in the past. CLI scripts? I think the right CLI script.
Select all, delete, right? I know.
But there's a lot of actually CLI scripts as an example here as well. And then you can easily do automations using whatever is a chosen thing. And having a centralized location for this is awesome. Now, related on that one, we'll actually jump on the sample gallery in a second to see what's there. But that obviously these samples are also exposed not only in here, but they're also exposed in the sample gallery. So thank you, Nandeep, on the latest contributions here as well. A lot of new stuff here as well.
And Kasper, and Rashmi, and Katsuya, and Joshua, and Kasper, and Rashmi.
Now, on the PnP Tech Bites, there was a new video on user-assigned managed identities in the Azure AD identity security important things. Thank you, Paolo, for pushing and updating people on how these things actually are working. Less than 4 minutes video related on that particular topic.
This is really,
so
really cool. Managed identities are so cool thing where you can connect to something without having to store credentials or secrets or certificates anywhere. So this is really great thing you should definitely know about.
Yep, absolutely. Then April Dunham had a Copilot Chronicles series, continues with an AI ethics in the spotlight and navigating Copilot responsibly. This comes back on something that's a bit touched on the previous discussion. So the bias, typically the AI bias is caused by the source data, and the source data might be focused on certain specific areas more than others, and therefore the AI basically balances its focus area on certain things. So as an example, if you feed it with a car data and most of the car data you feed the AI to is about Ferrari, then the Ferrari will be the chosen one. So that's how it works.
Exactly. And the same things, about profession, like all firemen are men.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that. So
I try to be more neutral example, but definitely that is a valid example.
Just making a clear example, not promote any brands, but
correct.
There are many things that are way ingrained, and that's not the reality anymore. And we need to ensure that AI is free from all of that.
Yes, and the source material has to be diverse enough, which is, by the way, one of the key challenges in the AI training, because we typically use the same set of data in the baseline training of the AI, or like in the case of OpenAI, then we're using internet, and that's not necessarily always, factually correct.
Not necessarily always factually. Like these are all, like 4 words that don't belong in a sentence regarding the internet.
True. But yeah, super important topic, and it's actually really good to know about these challenges. It's not like the AI intentionally tries to push certain things. No. Again, it comes from the source data. Source data has to be diverse enough and good enough to be able to AI to figure out what is the right answers.
As you know, with anything you can train, the way what you put in, you get out. It's absolutely different than that.
Absolutely. It doesn't come up out of something and out of thin air. It just doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
It's magic.
Now, on the Shane's blog, video site, there was a nice video related on advanced forms. That is a pretty advanced looking form in the Power App. So multiple selections and multi-select, what is it? Many to one.
One-to-many relationships.
One-to-many relationships, exactly, and all of that. So how would you implement those things? 21-minute video focused on those implementation. So
cool.
Good. And then we wanted to do a quick look on what are the latest samples in here. So we can actually, the Kasper sample, I think this is the script sample, and that was the Rashmi's script sample. No. This is not a script sample.
Content.
This is actually web part. That is true.
Yeah, there you go. It only proves the point that there are many samples submitted by community, Microsoft employees, all towards. And I don't know how many do we have now. I think like 1,700 plus.
1,747 total results.
Yeah, there you go. And that number goes up every single day. It's really insane to see. This is probably the best source of if you have a customer demo. If you want to see what's possible on Microsoft 365, There is no better place for you to see, because there's a bunch of examples that show you that across the board, whether that's SharePoint framework, web parts, Teams, apps, message extensions, graph connectors, scripts, you name it. It's in there, right?
Yep. And we just got, as an example, all of the Microsoft Teams toolkit samples listed here as well, which is really, really cool. And we can filter them in a multiple selection. Now, of course, if you select Teams, you will get the same samples as well. If you select the graph, you will get all of the graph samples, but you can drill in more detailed for the graph connectors and all of that. So it's working really nicely. So definitely good to see this one at this level. And I love the fact that we finally have this cross organizations. People want to have their samples in here, which is brilliant. Excellent.
And community too, right? Because at the
Correct.
end of the day, what is it that everyone like? You want people to be able to find this, and you want it to be a single place where we've got everything, and you've got filters, and you can find things, as opposed to it's in one obscure repo somewhere else, and you need basically to know that it's there, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And you also have your personal view on all of the samples what you provided. So as an example, Rashmi has provided so many samples related on things.
You know what we should include there, or think about it, like sponsorship or buy coffee or something else, because it will be really great for, to recognize these folks and like, hey, like I really appreciate like you build something I can use in my work. Here is something.
Absolutely. It's really, really cool. Now, I guess we already went through what's happening this week as a quick summary with Mike.
Ignite. So this week is
Ignite, and then 1 week in between, and then ESBC right after that. And then I guess it's safe to say that we're heading a bit slower time period finally. I think we're peaking on the ESBC curve, and then a bit. Of course, you need to deliver and planning and all of that. I know, that's mine. but people are already starting to talk about, holiday season coming up. It's going to be slowing down. Is it really? Is it?
Not here.
Yes. Depends on the organization and depends on a country and
geography. Yes,
exactly.
Depends on everything.
Exactly. I will actually do that one. No. Nope.
Because it's really important to have this right, like in the last minute of the call.
Of course it is. Scroll. What happens if I click here? Whoa.
Scroll. Where? Where's scroll? Oh, scroll, not squirrel.
Yes.
Anyways.
Cool. But thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Mike, for joining on the discussion. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. And please use hashtag PnP Weekly when you're sharing something, and we'll find your articles and samples and videos more efficiently. Or add a comment within your video tweet with the hashtag PnP Weekly, so we can actually find it. If you don't want to put it in the the primary promotion, helps us to find the relevant content for you. What else? Waldek?
Next week we'll be back probably with recap from Ignite.
That is true. Yes, that's actually a good point. There's going to be a lot of announcement this week, so there's going to be an interesting
and I hope
to see
that
how many articles
we will get the personal opinions on the Ignite announcement from everybody in community.
Correct, in ESBC.
That would be really great.
Yes,
that would be really great to hear from all of you folks. What do you think? Did you like it? Not like it? Where do you see opportunities or not? Or your opinions, feelings, anything? That would be really interesting to learn.
Absolutely. And that's why we are in ESBC as well. We can hear the feedback, we have a discussion. So please come to talk with us within a few weeks in Amsterdam. So, which is really cool. But I think that's it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Waldek. Thanks everybody for watching, listening. We'll be in touch.
See ya.